Coming to you live from a movie theater near you, it's the Movie Change Up Podcast 2022 Fantasy Draft. Now, I don't even know if we've talked about this on the podcast, but it's something we've been talking about through text messages maybe for the last 2 or 3 months of, hey, what's something we can do to keep us engaged in the movies of 2022, the good ones and the bad ones, even the ones, we're dying to see and the ones we have no interest in seeing. And we came up with basically if you've played fantasy football, it's a kind of a similar thing to that. However, instead of drafting players, we are drafting movies set to come out in 2022. We have an entire system that we will go through later, talking about how points are scored. We did the draft via text. We originally were going to do the draft as an episode, but this was kind of the last week. We wanted to do it before the Batman came out. And we wanted to make sure we got the draft done before then. And unfortunately, we couldn't get all three of us on in time. So we decided we'll just do it via text, and then we'll just have a draft recap episode. So that's why Johnny and I are here to talk about this year's draft, tell you what movies we picked, how the point system's going to work, and we'll keep you guys updated throughout the year, who's leading, who's falling behind. Maybe what movies are picked up, what movies are dropped, and I'll kind of keep you aware of what movies are set to come out. So Johnny, I think this was kind of partially your idea. I think Tristan was the most involved in setting this up, but what was kind of your thought going into setting up your draft board? Did you have any kind of thoughts, or did you just look up movies as you drafted?
You obviously come in with a strategy of, okay, I have my top picks, and this is kind of the order I want to go. I wanted to be one of the first two people to take a superhero film, when we get into like our categories. And I wanted to be one of the first to take basically superhero and animated, because those are big ones that can basically, win you the draft. They can be Oscar darlings, or they can just make a shit ton of money. And with our point system, those are going to be good ones to do that. So I wanted to get a couple of those. And then I wanted to kind of swing and miss on a few in my flexes of movies that I'm looking forward to, or movies that I think will make a lot of money. And I think I got a nice variety of those. So, some of my big money ones are not necessarily ones that I'm looking forward to, but I wanted to get some box office ones, and I hope also I can get some Oscar ones in there. You kind of got to spread the wealth. You can't rely only on box office. You can't rely only on Oscars, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yep. All right, and so if you're watching this on any of the video forms, you can see the movies we've drafted. But if you're watching this on audio podcast form, before you learn what movies we took, let me explain the rules. So this is kind of Tristan's rule system. We have 12 movies for a team. You're only allowed one Netflix movie, one superhero movie, and one animated movie. The whole year ends the night of the Oscars, so that would be the Oscars of 2023, not the one at the end of this month, obviously, or end of next month. You get one free drop, and every additional drop is going to cost you 20 points. Your team does not need to be full, which you may have already realized if you're watching a video version of this. Drops and changes must be announced in the group chat. Picks are locked in on the day of their first reviews, including film festival debuts. You get 1 point per Metacritic score, and you get double points for any score over 90. So if it got a Metacritic score of 95, you'd get 100 points, because 90 plus 10. 5 points per week in the top 10 of the box office or top 10 streaming. Double points per week in the top 3. You get 5 points per award show win. Now we gotta figure out between the three of us what constitutes an award show. Like if we find some small time award show of like the Minneapolis Movie Awards, are we counting that, or are we just sticking with like the SAG Awards, the Golden Globes, and the Oscars? And then you get 40 points per Oscar nomination, 60 points per Oscar win. And then we have some wildcard rules to keep it fun. The best of the best. You get 150 points if your movie wins the Best Picture at the Oscars. Le Best de Le Best. You get 150 points if your movie wins the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, which is kind of like the Best Picture award for the Cannes Film Festival. Critical Darling plus 50. The movie with the most award nominations. Again, that's when we have to determine what awards are we counting here, because I'm sure you could find the smallest trivial award show or award that a movie could get and try to sneak your way into some points. What do they know? 20 points for the lowest Rotten Tomatoes score of the league. The Star Wars Effect. Plus 20 points for the largest divide between critic and user score of the league. What the one thing I wasn't sure, and I didn't even think about it until after we drafted. Does it matter which one is higher as far as critic or fan? So like, does it have to be one with like an 80 critic score and like a 20 fan score? Or are we talking 20 fan score and 80 or 20? You know what I'm saying?
I think it would just be the biggest difference between the two at either one. You know,
Okay.
you take the lowest and the highest of either or, and
Yeah.
what has the biggest contrast between the two. Because
Yep.
you know, with that, I think it might be easier to get a movie that has a super low critic score and a super high user
Yeah.
score. But also, you could sneak in. I think that would make it pretty relevant to get like a indie film that critics adore and it has like a 40 or below percent by audiences.
Yep.
So you could go either way with that one.
Yep. And then we have the Scrooge McDuck rule: 50 points for the highest grossing movie in the league, which I imagine will probably be one of our superhero movies. Um,
Yeah, there's a couple wild cards that could possibly upset some of the superhero films. I know, like
yeah.
this last year, Spider-Man was such a high-grossing film, and everyone's saying all you can see is um, all that makes money is superhero films. But you have some other pretty big franchise films coming out this year that could be
Yeah.
dark horses for that.
Yep. Social distancing -5. If anyone in your movie says the line "We've got company," you lose 5 points. You know me too well. 10 points every movie that ends up in the top 10 of someone else's yearly ranking. And then finally, if he dies, he dies. 11 points if your main character dies. Don't know how we settled on 11 points, but that's it. Johnny, what are your thoughts on those rules?
I like them. I think the last few are funny. I don't think those will be the deciding factors of any, but it would be funny if someone was tied and then lost, 11 points because the main character died in one of
Well,
their later drafted films. So
not gonna
could
lie.
be.
Looking at one of Tristan's flex picks, I think he's pretty much guaranteed a free 11 points here. If the movie
Yeah.
goes if the movie goes as far into the story as I think it will, I think Tristan's guaranteed a free 11 points.
Yeah. Sonic is really
Yeah.
looking doomed by the end of that one.
All right, so we talked about the rules. Like we said, each one of us was only allowed one superhero movie, one Netflix movie, and one animated movie. So let's compare these. I believe in the first round. So the order was Tristan drafted first, then Johnny, and then me, and chosen via random draw. And your first round pick, I believe, was the Batman. Tristan took Aquaman 2 in the final round because you and I had already drafted superhero movies, so he didn't need to wait, or he could wait because he knew we couldn't take another superhero movie, so it made the most sense to wait until the end. And then I
Hmm.
took Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Now, I think the interesting thing here is I think I have the nice balance of the middle as far as awards and box office because I think Doctor Strange could pick up a lot of like visual effects type awards, and as well as because what we saw with No Way Home with old characters appearing from different universes, the similar thing with Doctor Strange, I think it could pop off and have a great box office. And yours similarly as well. I think the darkness of the movie could keep away some of the box office, but I wouldn't be like it's not crazy talk for like the Batman to be nominated for Best Picture in the 2023
Hmm.
Oscars. And then Aquaman 2, the first one had a crazy box office, but I'm curious how well that's going to hold up. I think the full title is actually Aquaman the Lost Kingdom. That's a movie that could perform just as well as the first, or it could open to like $50 million.
Yeah. My two. I was debating on superhero movie. I knew I wanted to get that one my first overall pick. Unless you guys, unless I had the third pick and you guys both ended up taking superhero movies and I could wait on it. But I was between. I'm surprised that my second option was not taken at all because I was, when I got the number two pick, I figured number one pick might be Batman, and my backup would have been Thor: Love and Thunder. I thought that one is a lock as probably the highest grossing Marvel movie this year. Now maybe Multiverse of Madness with all the cameos it's supposed to have does it, but it's not like anyone cares that much about Doctor Strange. And Thor Ragnarok was a huge hit, so I figured that one would be easily the number 2 superhero film off the board, and I was surprised it wasn't. I figure with Batman, like you mentioned, it's the only superhero film outside of visual effects that could actually be nominated for any Oscars, unless technical stuff aside. But I think the Batman could sneak in some Oscar awards in there, and the seriousness of the movie I don't think matters too much box office wise, because it comes out in March and there's not really a big budget film that's going to come knock it off its throne for a long time. I mean, the next big movie franchise wise would be Sonic the Hedgehog 2 in early April. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to be top 10 for at least a month, maybe 2 or 3 months with the Batman. I think that has the least amount of competition after its release. And that's what with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, it could open pretty big, but I don't think it'll have the legs at all, because it'll probably get panned a decent amount by critics. Maybe that one is what Tristan was going for lowest critic score, highest audience score. That could be a possibility because of DC diehards. But at the same time, the first one wasn't good. I know he was a fan of it, but I thought it was not
okay.
not a very well made movie. Yeah, I thought it was okay, but it was a little too corny, and it just, we'll see what direction this one goes. If it's just the same old as the last one, I don't see this one breaking any ground, and it's going to be competing, most likely, unless it gets pushed back, it's going to be competing with, like Avatar 2, which, if that's anything like the first one, is going to just gobble up the box office.
Yeah, Aquaman 2 is kind of a surprising pick for me from Tristan. I know the first one did well, but I would have taken The Flash over that. I would have taken Black Panther 2 over that, even though I think there's a decent chance it doesn't come out on 2022. I would have taken that risk. And because you get one free drop, so if I would have taken, Aquaman 2 comes out in December, I would have locked up Black Panther 2, and then, come May, if they're like, hey, Black Panther 2 pushed to February or something, that's when I would have been like, okay, I'm dropping Black Panther 2 and taking Aquaman instead. But it is what it is. Tristan did leave us some notes on kind of what his thought process was. He says, it's the people's choice of superhero movies. The first movie was a huge financial success because it could appeal to the average person not invested in the long-running franchises. Its production has gone way smoother than Black Panther and The Flash, so it has a better shot at positive reviews, good word of mouth, and actually making its release date. I'm scared it'll move to 2023 to avoid Avatar 2, though. I definitely don't think there's a chance that it gets better reviews than Black Panther 2, even though Black Panther 2 has had problems. But it films a mile from where I work, and I drive by it like 4 or 5 times a day. And they're very much into high gear as far as reshoots go right now. Green screens everywhere, crap ton of vehicles. So I think they're pushing hard to make that release date.
Yeah, I think there's no way Aquaman, maybe they push it back a month or two to avoid Avatar 2, but I don't think it gets pushed all the way back to 2023. Because DC, especially if the Batman is successful, they're not going to want to then wait on capitalizing on, DC's momentum at that point, especially with so many Marvel movies coming out this year. So, and I don't know. I mean, the first Aquaman, it's sitting here with a 65% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is a positive score, which is good for a DC movie recent years. But, I don't see the second one breaking through any more than that. Like, I think 65 is probably the cap on Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom's score there. So we will see what happens with that. But maybe it surprises people, but I just can't see that one with all the films that come out around Christmas and all the holidays. Like that one doesn't have the legs. I feel like if anything else, I don't see that one getting pushed back, but I could see them maybe pulling it up a couple months, being like, all right, everything's done. If they have everything completed and they want a different date that's not around Christmas, they could put a November release date on that easy. And, just move it off that spot and make it come out a little earlier.
Yeah, for sure.
Which could help him.
And do you have anything else to say about these superhero movies, or you want to move down to the Netflix movies?
What was your superhero movie? I'm sorry.
Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, that one's interesting because I just recently saw No Way Home, Spider-Man. So coming off of that and all the records it breaks, I think that was a good risk on your part, because normally Doctor Strange 2 would be like 10th in line as far as like popularity of superhero movies coming out in the year. But after Loki was popular, after WandaVision was popular, you get some of those characters in there. You get in a million cameos. I think that's a risky shot by you, but it's not as risky as the Aquaman one. So
Yeah.
yours could easily be the highest grossing of the year if everything comes to
Yeah.
fruition with it. Like that's
Yeah.
its ceiling for sure.
And there's a decent chance too. Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness comes out 80+% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I think there's a better chance that this movie opens to over $200 million than under $100 million.
Oh, for sure.
And then I think it'll have legs because there's still really. I mean, there's the Batman It'll basically probably be the movie that takes off the Batman as number one. It comes out,
Mhm.
or I guess no, there's a couple months. So because it's May 4th, so there's 2 months in between. So
Yeah.
Batman will have basically be out of the top 5 at that point. But I think Doctor Strange will be a big hit throughout most of the summer.
I think so too. I think there's a lot of hype going into that with it, but that's another one too. If that's as big of a mess as it could be, if they completely falter on that and they don't have a story and it's just a bunch of cameos, that could get completely killed by critics and have a super high audience score.
Yeah,
Because every audience person is going to be super happy that all they're seeing, the X-Men and whoever's going to pop up, and it's going to have like a 93% audience score, and it could be like a 40% critic score. I don't necessarily see that because you don't get that a lot with the Marvel movies, but if it's just kind of a choppy mess, you could get a huge difference in scores there. I don't see it going the other way where it's, high critic, low audience, but it could easily get that big difference, get you some bonus points.
yeah, yeah. That was kind of on the back burner in my mind as well as something that was very possible with this movie that it completely bombs and it does get me those free points. Granted, I'd rather it be at the top of the box office crushing it than get a few measly points, but I'll take what I can take. I think that'll probably bring us to our next topic, which is our Netflix movies. You took The Killer, Tristan took Knives Out 2, and then I took The Good Nurse. Now, The Killer is what, David Fincher's next movie?
David Fincher's next film, a little bit of a risk because it's still in production. It's announced for 2022, but who knows? All it takes is, a couple issues with production for that to get pushed back because it's supposed to come out late 2022. But I figure that's a good one to snag if it drops this year, and it could be Fincher's big return to his strength after even Mank got a bunch of Oscar noms, but even if you look at Gone Girl, that was up for Oscars. I could see The Killer doing that. Fincher's a box office, not a box office darling, but a critic darling. That's going to have, if that's as good as Gone Girl or on that level, it's going to have a super high Metacritic score, and things like that. So, and I think it's going to have a ton of views on there because people still love Seven and Zodiac, and every time that Fincher does one of his crime thrillers, and I'd like to, and I'm rooting for Michael Fassbender to just kind of have a return to form too with that one. So I'm excited for it. The only other Netflix movie that I considered was Hustle with Adam Sandler, but I don't know exactly how popular that one will be. I know I'll watch it a bunch because it looks really good, but if that one comes out and is just like a typical Adam Sandler Netflix quality film and not as good as its teaser trailer was, I could see that one just kind of getting lost after a couple weeks. So The Killer I'm shooting for because that one actually it could have a claim behind it as well as being, one of Netflix's top movies for a long time.
Yeah. Is that based on a true story, do you know?
I don't think it's based on a true story. I think it's based on a book.
Okay, that's fair. Tristan took Knives Out 2, and his notes for it were, "You'll be hard-pressed to find any Netflix movie this year that will even have half the level of pre-investment from audiences and critics. The original was a huge critical, commercial, and word-of-mouth hit, even as a new IP, so I have high expectations for the sequel. It could even be an awards push from Netflix." I think, and then I took The Good Nurse, which is it's based on a true story, directed by the guy who wrote Another Round, and he wrote the other Mads Mikkelsen movie that came out recently, I believe. Stars Jessica Chastain, and the main reason I took it is I think there's a very good chance that it will be well received. And I know true crime is huge on Netflix. Like, people love true crime. And I thought it's based on a true story, so uh, I thought there was a very good chance that it just stays at the top of Netflix for a while after it comes out. And I thought there is even a decent chance for Oscars. I doubt maybe a Best Picture, but I could see like a Jessica Chastain Oscar nomination. So that was the main reason I went for The Good Nurse. Knives Out 2 was at the top of my board. I didn't even hear of The Killer until you drafted it. But yeah, I think all three of us have pretty solid picks here. There's not one that... Knives Out 2 I can kind of see as maybe the standout number one, but I think all three of them have a decent shot at getting us points.
Knives Out 2 will maybe be the most popular out of these, but I think ours will actually have chances at awards if they're hits. Knives Out was popular, but it didn't get any award attention, I don't believe. And I honestly wasn't a fan of the first one, so I wasn't going to draft the second one, even if I know it'll be popular. That wasn't really even on my radar. As soon as I saw some article that it's David Fincher teaming back up with I don't even know the name of it because it doesn't say it here. Yeah, Andrew Kevin Walker, who was it'll be their first team up since Seven. He's the writer of The Killer, so I think this one could be a hit. It's got a good cast, and that one, as soon as I saw it, I was like, all right, that's the top of my Netflix board. Even if it doesn't get released, I'll have to use one of my drops on it. But yeah, yours was another one like I wasn't really super aware of until you drafted it. So I'm excited for that because I love that director. He did The Hunt, which is one of the best movies of the 2010s, and then also Another Round, which was one of the best movies of 2020. So anything that he does, I will check out for sure.
Yeah, so I think and I did look it up. Knives Out was nominated for Best Original Screenplay at the Oscars. So
that's what it was. I was like, I said it, and then I was like, I know it got something, but I forgot if it was editing or screenplay. Screenplay was the one.
Yeah,
but I don't believe it won.
And my movie has Nnamdi Asomugha for some reason, so can't wait to see that.
That's cool.
Yeah, there's not really much to say for these Netflix movies because really the only place they're gonna get us points here, probably, I don't see any of them having a big disparity as far as critic and audience score. So it's basically only going to be how long are they in the Netflix top 10 and maybe some award nominations. Which brings us to our next category, which is animated movies. You took Lightyear. Tristan, with the first overall pick, took Spider-Verse Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. And I took Minions, The Rise of Gru. Which one of these is not like the other? Mine... I think we're kind of thin in animated movies this year, and I knew the Minions were super popular, and I decided to go in that route because I was ultimately trying for a lot of those ones of critic and audience score separation, as well as potentially maybe the worst movie of the year, and then obviously also box office because I knew that it's a Minions movie, so it's probably going to make a crap ton of money. What was your thought process behind Lightyear? Because there's a specific reason I wouldn't have drafted Lightyear, so I'm curious why you did.
My biggest thing is just that it's a Pixar movie. It's about a character we know. I think it for sure. It's going to be a lock for Best Animated Feature nomination, possibly an award. I was debating, anytime Pixar puts out a movie, it's going to get nominated. You look at that, even with Luca, which is one of their middling films, gets an Oscar nomination, but it's going to make money. It's going to appeal to kids. It's Buzz Lightyear. There's a ton of nostalgia behind it, and Chris Evans, who's Captain America, there's a big reason there. So I think everything with that. My number one would have been Across the Spider-Verse, but Tristan took that first, so my backup was Lightyear, and I could see that. I could see it being a legitimately good movie because it's Pixar, or it's super high audience score, super low critic score if they don't do it right. What's your reason that you wouldn't have drafted it?
The main reason I wouldn't have drafted it is I think like the last 3 or 4 Pixar movies they've pulled from theaters and put on Disney Plus. So if the Disney Plus earnings or like the viewership isn't quite where they want it to be in time for the movie to come out, I could see Disney pulling it from theaters and putting it straight to Disney Plus. So you'd still get, I think, a lot of the awards and stuff, but I think you wouldn't get the same
Mhm.
box office you'd get that if it is straight to theaters. And I think there's like a 60% chance it does go to theaters, but that 30%, 40% chance they put it on Disney Plus instead scared me enough that I wouldn't have drafted it.
I can't see them pulling this from theaters. I mean, they had Disney, it's not Pixar, but Disney put Encanto in theaters, and it didn't really take off
Yeah.
until it went straight to streaming. So maybe that's a reason they'd throw Lightyear. But I have a feeling Lightyear is going to end with um, the like in the movie, the theater, like the end pops up, and then it cuts to a crowd watching the movie, and Andy's in attendance in the audience and asks for Buzz Lightyear
Yeah.
for his birthday. And I don't think if you're going to do something like that, because the only reason this movie makes sense is if it's actually a in Toy Story universe
Yeah.
film. I think
Yeah.
if you want to have that big reveal at the end, you're not going to throw that to streaming because the whole end of it is them in a theater, unless they just change that to them streaming the movie at home. But that wouldn't make sense timeline wise.
Yeah, the director, writer, someone heavily involved in the movie has said that like Lightyear is the movie that Andy saw that made him want a Buzz Lightyear toy.
Yeah. So I think it ends with that, and you throw nostalgia in, and he's probably holding Woody in the theater, seeing the movie as young Andy. So like, I think with the end of that, that one is going to be such a hit. I don't think they would put it on Plus. That was like I avoided the other Pixar movie. What is it? Turning Red or
Yeah, that's
whatever it's called.
yeah. They already announced that one's
Yeah.
coming straight to Disney Plus. So
Hmm.
yeah, there's 0% chance I would have just not drafted the
Yeah.
movie instead of drafting that one.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. So like that was off the board for animated. I didn't even know they were making another Minions movie. And then the only other animated movie that was even in consideration for me, if I was like third to it, would have maybe been the DC
yeah,
League of Super Pets or whatever. Because who knows with that one? It could be hit or miss, but it's about dogs and cats, and even those really bad like Secret Life of Pets movies made money, and this one has Superman in it. So
yeah.
like
That's
that could be a big box office hit.
and then you have The Rock voicing Superman's dog and Kevin Hart voicing Batman's dog. So that's definitely. And I was 50-50. Even as I was typing it out, I was debating because I had the last of the animated movies. I went last, and I was debating, do I go Minions or do I go DC Super Pets? And I was like, I'll take the established franchise over this. That could just because even if this is bad, people are gonna see it because of the Minions and Rise of Gru. Where if DC's League of Super
Hmm.
Pets comes out and the ratings just completely destroy this movie and say it's garbage, then I don't see DC Super Pets doing well, especially because animated movies haven't really been doing well in general in the pandemic. So
Yeah, yours. Yeah, it'll be interesting because the animated movies, like, why bring your whole family out with COVID and everything to deal with? But I think some of these could make some money, and this could be 2022 could be the year that it's like, let's get the family back out to the movie theater. Animated movies always, made a shit ton of money in the past. We could see the return to form of that this year. I wouldn't be surprised. And Minions, you could easily lock up the worst Rotten Tomatoes score and have one of the best uh, box office movies there. So I think that was a good pick that I didn't even know that was coming out. So that was kind of a sneaky one at the end there.
all right, and Tristan had some notes about his Spider Verse pick of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Round one, pick one for a reason. I think this will be an even bigger hit than the first one. We saw in 2021 how much Spider Man can defy the odds and break records regardless of anything going against it. Into the Spider Verse kickstarted the multiverse and has only gotten more popular over the years. By the end of 2022, the desperation for Spider Man might take over once again, especially if Multiverse of Madness does well. The hype levels going into this could be astronomical. Yeah, I fully agree. I think if any of us had the first pick, I think all three of us probably would have taken this with the first pick. It just makes sense. Movie's going to do well. I think we can basically guarantee it's going to be a nomination for Best Animated Feature, considering the first one won the category. It's going to make a crap load of money, especially if they can get like Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire, and Andrew Garfield to voice characters or voice their Spider-Man in it. So
Hmm.
definitely interested to see how it does, and I think Tristan has a good pick here with the first overall pick.
Yeah, definitely. Because if, like you said, animated movies, like kids movie wise, like Lightyear and Minions, if those aren't, let's all bring the family to the theater, like let's wait for it to stream, we're going to go see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That was a huge hit with our age and above. Like that's something that the parents will get a babysitter for their kids and go see it themselves rather than bring the whole family to if they don't want to. So that's got the adult
Yeah.
appeal. Lightyear's got that nostalgia, so I could see that one
Yeah.
too having a similar effect, but not nearly in the same realm as Spider-Man coming off the success of No Way Home and the first Spider-Verse.
Yeah. All right. So I think that kind of wraps up our animated categories, which brings us to our flex. And instead of going round by round, we'll just cover each person's flex picks. And we'll start with Johnny. Johnny had the Martin Scorsese Leonardo DiCaprio re-team up Killers of the Flower Moon. He also took the big box office movie Jurassic World Dominion, as well as Alex Garland's next movie Men, the horror movie The Black Phone, the horror movie Halloween Ends, David O. Russell's next movie starring Christian Bale, Canterbury Glass, and then who's it? Paul Verhoeven or no? It's
David Cronenberg.
David Cronenberg's next movie, Crimes of the Future. I think you, looking at your list, it feels like you had a similar strategy, very similar to me. Started off with a movie that you think has good odds to win Best Picture, and then you mixed in a big box office movie as well as just movies in various categories, hoping to secure either box office points or award points, and then you took a risk on a few. What was kind of your
Mhm.
strategy with some of these picks?
I mean, my first flex picks, if I had, two in a row, would have been the two that I got. I got Killers of the Flower Moon, which I think is a lock for awards recognition and possibly Best Picture. You got Killers of the Flower Moon is an incredible book. It's known as one of the greatest books of the decade, I would say, when it came out. And you get Scorsese teaming up with Leo, and I believe it's the first team up with Robert De Niro and the two of them as well. So that one I think has a good shot at Best Picture, as well as box office because those like Wolf of Wall Street was a hit, Shutter Island was a pretty big hit. If you team up Leo and Scorsese, those are not only Oscar movies but could stay top 10 in the box office for at least a month or so. And then Jurassic World Dominion would have been my next one because I don't like the franchise, especially after Fallen Kingdom was a disaster. But those movies make so much money. That one is my big box office darling of my pick, so I wanted at least one of those. Um, and then I really wanted a couple that you guys took, but one of my backups was Men, just because I love Alex Garland, and I think that's a lock for right around 80% Metacritic score. I don't know how it'll do at the box office. That'll be interesting because Ex Machina was a super low budget film, and Annihilation it stayed top 10 for a couple weeks, but it wasn't a big moneymaker overall. But we'll see. I mean, Men that could easily get, depending on how it looks, it could get like a visual effects or cinematography Oscar. And then I wanted to hit on a couple horror movies because those always have legs in the box office for a while. So The Black Phone, um, what is it? Alan Silvestri's next film with Ethan Hawke. I think that could be a good moneymaker, and it's a horror movie in June, so I think that one is going to be kind of against the grain and counter programming to the rest of the superhero films and stuff out. And that was already kind of a hit where it aired at some festivals. Um, Halloween Ends. Both the first two Halloween films were box office hits. The second one not as much, but both of them were in the top 10 box office for about a month. And if this one is closer to the quality of the first one, it made almost $500 million at the box office. So that could be a big hit. And if it's not, it could be the lowest. Halloween Kills was a 40% Rotten Tomato score. So this could be, if it's as bad as Halloween Kills or even worse, this could be like a 30%er and lock me up for worst score. And then, yeah, like you said, I took risks on the next two. David O. Russell, I'm just kind of hoping that he gets back into Oscar darling form with this after Joy was a flop and a total dud. But even American Hustle, which is a weaker film of his, got nominated for everything. So if this is, this is a period piece with a huge cast, could easily be nominated in a ton of categories. Maybe lock up a couple Oscar wins. You get Christian Bale in a David O. Russell film. He's already won for that before. And then Cronenberg with Viggo Mortensen, Crimes of the Future, a film he wrote back in the 70s and never got it made. And now he's finally doing it. I think that one could be a good return for him. Otherwise, it gets pushed back to 2023 and ends up being a drop. But they're working on it, and I think that one is going to come out. And that's kind of those two I wanted to kind of lock up in case they do start getting Oscar hype. And if not, then they could just be drops before they come out. So I think you'll hear about those. If the trailer drops and it doesn't look like much, then it's just like, all right, I'm going to get rid of those and pick up something else. So, but for now, I like to have those locked up before Tristan or you could sneak in and steal those in a month or two when there starts to get, more hype around them. So my overall strategy was just kind of mix up award season type of things with box office movies and get a nice mix of those. And I feel like I did a good job with that. And I was happy with how my list ended. And then we all left a couple spaces open at the end for pickups, maybe later in the year pickups. So it worked out. And I spread mine out with release dates throughout the year as well. It's not like everything coming out soon or everything coming out towards the end of the year that I'm going to have to worry about getting pushed back. I got a nice mix of release dates on mine.
Yeah, I really don't have anything to add against what anything you said. I will say one of the things that I think benefits the black phone the best, the horror movie starring Ethan Hawke, is the show Moon Knight, because he's playing a villainous cult leader, and I think that starts the end of March. So you said that movie comes out in June, so right around the time it's set for that movie to come out, Moon Knight will be wrapped up, and if he gives a good performance in there, and that show is like as dark and as creepy as, they're kind of suggesting it is, I think people who could be exposed to Ethan Hawke for the first time in a while, because he's mostly been doing like indie and smaller stuff, so it could be peak Ethan Hawke time, right? Just in time for another thing starring Ethan Hawke to come out, and I could see that blowing up if it's as good as that trailer was.
Plus, also, I called it Alan Silvestri. That's the composer. I meant Scott Derrickson. So you throw on for that movie, you put director of Doctor Strange with that movie having been out already. And if that's a big hit, you throw Scott Derrickson's name on there, director of Doctor Strange. You get that name recognition as well. You don't got any other horror movies really coming out in that time. So I think there's a nice blend of ways that one could take off and stay in the box office top 10 for a while. And also it's about a super dark subject matter. So that one could be a hit critically and flop like audience score wise. So we'll see on that one too.
But yeah, I think, like you said, Killers of the Flower Moon, decent chance at Best Picture win, probably a Best Picture nomination. Jurassic World Dominion, decent shot of being a big box office hit, could stay in the top 10 for a long time and get some points there. Men is one of those movies that could be a risk. It could be maybe your only points come from that is the Metacritic score, because I imagine it'll be high, but maybe it doesn't really do well with the audiences, and maybe it's kind of forgotten come awards time. Same thing, yeah, Halloween Ends, Canterbury Glass, and Crimes of the Future, all bigger risks, but, you have extra spaces.
I think Men, if it sneaks into Oscar territory, I think it could be. If it gets nominated for Best Special Effects, it could be a lock to win that award, because we already had Ex Machina win coming from, Alex Garland and a similar team. So if that one comes around award season and still getting some attention for that, I could sneak a win in for there. But yeah, like you said, like Metacritic score and maybe sneaking in a visual effects one is what I'm counting on with that one. And I'm super excited for it. So I wanted either that, Nope, or the Northmen, and I didn't get the other two, so I had to take Men.
Yeah. All right. And do you have anything else you want to say about your list before we move over to Tristan's list?
I think we've covered everything we need to do about mine. Other than I mentioned at the beginning a couple wild cards for non-superhero films to maybe have the biggest box office, and one of those might be Jurassic World Dominion. If that one's as big of a hit as the first one, that movie broke. It's since been broken, but when it Jurassic World came out, it broke box office records, opening weekend. So if this one gets the hype around it, it could do pretty well in the box office.
Yeah, I think the first Jurassic World, I think at one point had the highest box office opening of all time, and then I think or not Jurassic, I think Force Awakens broke it like the next year.
That later that year,
Or later
or
that year.
yeah,
I can't remember. I know Force Awakens was 2015. I can't remember if Jurassic World was 2014 or 2015, but yeah, so that brings
20,
us.
yeah, 2015. So it held
Yeah.
the record for a few months.
Yeah, and then Force Awakens came through and destroyed it.
Hmm.
For Tristan's list, his first movie was Nope, and I'm just going to read each of his little notes as I get to each movie. So, Nope, it's coming out July 22nd. He said, it's Jordan Peele. It'll make a ton of money and has Oscar potential after Get Out. Even this early, the teaser was at the Super Bowl and was a social media hit despite revealing next to nothing. It's the perfect way to build intrigue and convince audiences they need to see it in theaters to avoid spoiling twists. Calling it for the best original screenplay win. Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything he said. I was kind of between Nope and Babylon for my first pick when I got to the flex, and he had already taken Nope, so that kind of locked in what I was going to take with Babylon. So, I definitely think there's a good shot it does well. We have Elvis coming out June 24th, a music biopic about one of the most famous people of all time from an acclaimed director, is virtually guaranteed at least a couple award nominations, and the summer release date makes it seem like they might be playing for blockbuster numbers too. Every movie in Baz Luhrmann's filmography has been nominated for several awards and has a great mix of pop appeal too. This is his first movie since 2013, so it could ride the comeback buzz all the way to the Oscars. His next one was Creed 3, set for November 23rd. The previous two movies were both acclaimed and box office hits. The second made even more than the first, and the cast, now with Jonathan Majors, has only gotten more popular. I'm also extremely curious to see Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut. I'm not really expecting awards from this one, but it should deliver some solid points in box office and reviews. Uh, Next one is Sonic the Hedgehog 2, set for April 8th. The first one opened in the worst moments of the pandemic and was still a success. The second brings in a lot of iconic characters like Knuckles and Tails and seems to be more directly pandering to the video game fans. Paramount also seems confident and has already greenlit a third movie and a spin-off series starring Idris Elba, so bring in the money. His next one, The Fablemans, set for November 23rd. It's Spielberg's Belfast, a personal autobiography about his family life and falling in love with film in the good old days of Hollywood. The Academy and the awards guilds will eat it up, and David Lynch is in it. I'm a bit worried it gets pushed to 2023 if it doesn't come together well, and it probably won't be a moneymaker. My play is entirely on awards here. Next, we've got Bullet Train, set for July 15th. One word, Bullet Train. Just technically two words. Brad Pitt as a badass assassin with just a straight-up ridiculous supporting cast list. Everyone from Michael Shannon and Sandra Bullock to Andrew Koji and Brian Tyree Henry, all the way to Zazie Beetz and Bad Bunny. All directed by David Leitch. Stacked. I don't even care if I win points from this one. And finally, we have 13
They might
Lives,
not.
set for November 18th. Ron Howard isn't exactly at the top of his game, but he's not totally bombing either. He's just one good movie away from earning himself some career awards. This tells the famous story of the Thailand cave rescue of the Lost Kids soccer team from 2018, a hot story that just last year got made into a highly acclaimed documentary. Viggo Mortensen is coming off Green Book, and Colin Farrell and Joel Edgerton are both always great addition. A feel-good Best Picture winner? Question mark. So yeah, what are your thoughts on some of his picks here?
I love his pick of Nope. Us was a big box office hit. It's not going to be like Nope isn't going to be in contention for top of the year, but it's going to stay in the top 10 for a while. It's going to have legs. Jordan Peele's awesome, and like you mentioned with Get Out, that's a movie even coming out late July could still get award nomination come Oscar season. Um, Elvis was on my board. I really wanted that one too. I hope it's good. I think what I disagree with him on in his description is that Baz Luhrmann being an awards darling, he really hasn't been since, I mean, Moulin Rouge, if you can count that. But he's never really been like an awards darling or anything like that in his career. So if Elvis comes out and is mixed reviews like Gatsby, it's not going to be that big of a hit. But I'm looking forward to it. So it could sneak in there, and like he said, like with Bohemian Rhapsody recently coming out and winning some awards, you could maybe get Best Actor out of that, maybe a couple other nominations. Creed 3 will be a hit, but I'm not expecting anything huge. That one will just stay in the top 10 for a little while. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, I'm excited for it. Looks good. Like he mentioned, the first one made a lot of money, even though it came out at a bad time. So, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, with all the video game characters coming in like Knuckles, that nostalgia is going to bring people in. Um, I'm a little iffy on the Fablemans. I feel like Spielberg has his big West Side Story this year that his is already his awards darling, and I don't know. He's never really put that together 2 years in a row, so I don't know if necessarily that one will be like Spielberg's Belfast, like he says. Bullet Train has a brutal title. It reminds me a lot of Money Plane, but I think that one will be a fun action movie with a great cast. So we'll see. I mean, that one could get a decent Metacritic score and maybe stay in the box office for a few weeks, but that's probably it. And then 13 Lives I'd never heard of before he drafted it. And I don't think that one is in contention for almost anything. I feel like that's going to be more like, maybe because of the cast, you sneak in some things, but that could be a bomb like his whale movie with Thor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we'll see. It's kind of a mixed bag on some of those, but I think he's got some good picks there.
Yeah, I think Elvis, honestly, of the non-blockbusters that we drafted, of like the non-big franchise movies, I think that has the best chance of ending the year in like the top 5 to 10 range as far as box office goes. Just because the name recognition of Elvis, and I think Baz Luhrmann has enough style that if he hones it in enough, he can make it, with his style, can make it a different enough and interesting enough that it does well with the general audience without feeling just like a copy and paste of every other musical biopic that came before it.
Yeah. If it's closer to Walk the Line, it'll get some Oscar awards, but if it's with Baz Luhrmann's weird, distinct style, that could be one that's just kind of a mixed bag, doesn't have a high Metacritic score, and just completely falters without having any legs. So we'll see. It depends on how straightforward of a film it is, I think. I think if you just do a good, straightforward Elvis biopic, that one really could be big time Oscar bait and a successful film. But we'll see, because Baz Luhrmann is mostly miss, I feel like, with in terms of his style with having big hits. So we'll see. He's kind of the wild card with that. If it was like James Mangold doing Elvis, it's like, all right, that one's a lock for Oscar nominations for sure. Baz Luhrmann, not so much.
Speaking of James Mangold, you see one of his next upcoming, I don't know if it's his directly next upcoming movie, but he's set to do a Buster Keaton biopic, so.
Okay. All right. That's interesting.
So yeah, and Creed 3, the only thing that really concerns me about that movie is Michael B. Jordan as a director. It's his directorial debut. Obviously, we've seen a lot of actors become directors and be successful at it. So he could be great. Creed 3 could come out and we could be like, okay, this is better than the second one. It's on par with the first one. Can't wait to see what Michael B. Jordan can do as a director. And it could also come out and just be average. So it'll be interesting to see how it is. I'm curious without Stallone in it, because I'm pretty sure he's not in the third in this one, how it does with fans and if people care enough about the character of Adonis Creed that Adonis Creed movie can still hold its own box office wise without Rocky. But I could be proven wrong and could gross more than all of them, so who knows.
Yeah. All right, Joe, let's get to yours.
All right, my list, I wanted to draft the movie I thought had the best chance of Best Picture win. And probably the movie that's going to end up winning Best Picture is a movie we haven't even heard of yet and we hasn't hardly had any press announcements about. But I decided to go with Damien Chazelle's next movie, Babylon. It's supposed to be set in old Hollywood, so it's a movie set in old Hollywood, directed by a guy that the Academy loves, starring Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie, who the Academy loves. It also has Olivia Wilde in it, Tobey Maguire, Samara Weaving, Eric Roberts, Catherine Waterston, Gene Smart, Spike Jonze, Lucas Haas, Jeff Garlin, and Flea. So I thought there's a decent chance this movie sweeps at the award season. La La Land made a bunch of money as well, so you put from the writer and director of La La Land on your movie, I could see this doing very well at the box office. My only concern with any later release is that it doesn't get pushed to 2023. But I feel with an
Mhm.
awards type movie, it was intentionally placed as a Christmas release for the award season. So we shall
Yeah.
see. My next movie is The Northmen. It's basically a movie about like the Vikings back in the Viking days, and it's another one that I thought potentially is going to be more of an awards, but there's a decent chance it does well at the box office, similar to like an Apocalypto or those type movies. And also, it's Robert Eggers, so I think he does well come awards time. So I feel that was more of that of where I was going for there, with some hope for box office. But we shall see. And next up, I have Avatar 2. Again, another one that was more. This was a risk. Number one, a risk that this movie even comes out in 2022. But also, does anyone care about Avatar in 2022? And if the movie isn't very. If the movie doesn't push the boundaries as far as special effects go, I could almost see the Academy ignoring it out of spite. And but James Cameron, for whatever reason, even when people are doubting, like he made Terminator 2, and people are like, "You're not going to eclipse Terminator," and he, proved everyone wrong. Same with Avatar. It's hard to doubt James Cameron, so I had to go with Avatar 2. Next, we have Don't Worry, Darling, which is Olivia Wilde's sophomore directorial effort. It stars Florence Pugh, and it's basically set in like this 1950s style environment. Definitely sees like a movie directed at women. I could easily see this being an awards type movie. I could see potentially Olivia Wilde maybe getting getting nominations for best director, and maybe even some awards for Florence Pugh. Next, I took Fantastic Beasts 3, which is purely a box office pick. Is getting to slim pickings at this point, and I was like, hey, look, there's this big franchise movie still that no one's picked yet. I gotta pick it up because it's gonna get me at least some points.
Hmm.
Next, I got Next Goal Wins, Taika Waititi's next movie based on a true story of a real soccer team competing for the World Cup. It was one of those ones where I feel like potentially there's some awards potential just because it's Taika Waititi, but also maybe box office potential being a sports comedy. And then finally, Legally Blonde 3. It's the most different, I feel, from any of the other movies we chose. I thought maybe there's a chance it gets dumped on streaming and I really don't get any points from it. But I had hoped that maybe the women will go see it out of nostalgia for the first two Legally Blonde movies. So I was hoping I'd get some points out of there. And compared to the other movies taken in the final round of the movies we actually drafted, I feel like it's the best to actually get points. So, Johnny, any thoughts on my picks?
I like it. I like a few of yours. The Babylon one's interesting. That one, I do think that one is going to shoot for award season because so I don't see that one getting pushed back because then they would push
Mm,
it back like a year. Like that
yeah.
that's not one when you're going for Oscars mainly. It's not going to get pushed back a month or two. Um, and if it's mostly done, they're not going to push it back a year. So that one I think could get some Oscar awards for sure. Whiplash and La La Land were both nominated for Best Picture. The Northman, we'll see. That one, I don't know if that one will really get you many points, but it could surprise us and sneak into a few categories there. I feel like that one is more of like less of an Oscar movie, but maybe the Palme d'Or, like something like that. You could
Yeah.
maybe get that because I don't think outside of like maybe Killers of the Flower Moon, if that's big, I don't think we have a lot of movies other than that one that are like kind of smaller films that could win some festival awards. Um, and Avatar 2, you can't doubt James Cameron box office wise at this point, no matter how bad the movie is. Um, it's going to come in and make a shit ton of money. It could be the top of the year, and it could surprise everyone, passing all the superhero movies and showing that maybe people still do, care about Avatar. So that one, like along with Jurassic World, are the two like non-superhero films that have a shot at top box office overall. So that was a really good pick, and you got it pretty at a good in a good round there. Don't worry, darling. Like you said, everything with it could get some Oscar attention. Fantastic Beast 3 is going to have money. are going to make money, and the second one has a 36% on Rotten Tomatoes. So out of like the franchise movies that we took, that one has the lowest like in the franchise percentage wise. So if it's as bad as the last one, you could lock up the worst of the year while also piling in some box office totals. Next goal wins. We'll see if Taika Waititi's reached after Jojo Rabbit being like the Oscar guy, or if that's closer to just being a small movie like Hunt for the Wilder People, and just it's a good movie that no one really sees, and it's just a small little indie film that doesn't get Oscar attention. I think you could go either way with it. So that'll be interesting to see. And then Legally Blonde 3. That was a sneaky, like, it's I don't necessarily love the term chick flick, but you snuck one in there, and there doesn't seem to be a ton coming out this year. So if that does land in theaters, that could be a big hit. Like you said, for the audience that it's going for, could come out in droves to see it, and it could be like even if they go like a different route with it, and maybe it makes a bunch of money like Girls Night did, you could be sneaking in there for a while. Like if they go more straight comedy, because even like the first Legally Blonde is a super funny movie, no matter what age, gender, whatever you are. Like Legally Blonde is a super good movie. So we'll see. And Reese Witherspoon is kind of back on top of things after the morning show, which was a popular show on Apple Plus. People still love her. So that was a good pick. That was a great last round pick. Tristan and I both took really big chances on possible Oscar films, and you were just like, last round, I'm taking a movie that could lock it up at the box office and at least get me some points there. So I thought that was a good sneaky last round pick.
Yeah, Legally Blonde could be a movie like Girls Trip or Bad Moms, where it just rides the 4th or 5th spot in the box office for like 2 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. It could absolutely do that. It won't be up for awards or anything.
No.
And it won't be up for top box office of the year, but you could stay in the top 10 for a while and get points off that. If it's a good movie and a good reboot of the franchise or whatever, it could have a decent Metacritic score too. So I think that one's a lock for points, whereas I think Tristan and I took two, like with our later picks, maybe took a few that maybe don't bring us any points. So I think that was a good value where you took that one.
Yeah. All right. Any other final thoughts before we wrap this up?
I hope the Batman is as good as it looks and just kills it at the box office for as long as it should, because that's easily my most anticipated of the year. But behind that is Nope, which Tristan got, the Northmen, which you got, and Men, which I was able to grab. So I'm excited for all those movies, and I'm interested to see how some of these do. Like, there's a ton of question marks around Avatar 2, a ton of question marks around Elvis, and even something like Babylon. I'd be interested to see how that does box office wise, if it is a big Oscar darling. So I think we have a good wide variety of movies. I think everyone had a good strategy to kind of mix things up, going for different areas of the point. So I'm excited to see how these play out, and I'm excited to pick movies up as we see. It'll be kind of like a race to see who can text it in the group chat first when we see a big trailer drops, or news about something coming out drops, or a release date gets put on something, and we're all like scrambling to get to our phones to be like, all right, I take this and I take this. We all have 2 spots left, plus a free drop, without taking away any points. So it'll be interesting to see how many movies that we drafted here end up on our list by the end of the year or not. I could see Tristan and I probably took a few more than you did that would be like films that maybe we have to get rid of in a couple months. So I think your list is pretty safe and a good variety.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously biased, but looking at the list overall, I like my list the best. The only thing that really stands out to me that could hurt me overall is the animated movie Minions: The Rise of Gru, where I think yours will both get you a lot of points. I feel like there's a decent chance mine is just a big dud that doesn't really get me much for any points.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, other than that, I really don't have anything else to say. This will be really fun to keep up with throughout the year. This is kind of an idea we had, that if there's ever an episode or a week where only 2 of us can get on, we can kind of do a draft, a catch up of kind of where we're at, of who has points, what's going out. Maybe, look, we're checking out for this movie coming out next week that, we could see this could change how things go, or maybe the reviews are going to come out next week and we can see how it goes. So yeah, definitely curious to see how this goes. Hopefully we can keep doing this. This still be fun, or it'll just be a pain to keep up with, and we're like, you know what, that was fun to do for a year, but we stopped.
Yeah, we will see.
All right, and without further ado, goodbye. Hey, thank you for watching the Movie Change Up podcast. We'd really appreciate if you liked, commented, subscribed, and shared us with anyone you think might be into what we're doing over here. Thank you. Have a nice day.